It was rough to watch for 4 games, especially the last three. When I was pulling these notes together and pulling the notes for each individual game, kind of typing up a synopsis and how I wanted to approach this, it got pretty long. So I went to dinner, ate dinner, came back, did household stuff, and then sat down again and thought about it, the games and the series, and like I said, how I wanted to approach this. And normally moving forward, I think what this video series is going to be is just like we're going to talk about the games, each individual game in part of a series. And we'll talk about situational hitting, big moments, who rose to the occasion, who didn't. Maybe moves that Doc made that were good, that weren't. However, the Dodgers just in general got the doors blown off them this series. And the reasons they lost in games 2, 3, and 4 were pretty consistent and very apparent on the field. So instead of just rehashing and reliving all of the millions of reasons why the Dodgers lost, the royal we, I think we'll just talk about it as a whole. So we'll just go from there. And like I said, moving forward, these will just be more, game 1 played out this way, could have done this differently, game 2, 3. But this will just be a little different because, 1, this is a 4-game series. 2, these teams just saw each other. So there's a little bit that where that has to be taken into account. And lastly, like I said, all the reasons they lost were pretty consistent. So let's just get started. I first want to tip my cap to the D-backs, especially their front office and the players, obviously. But they are a really well-constructed team. They play to their strengths, and they actually just played to their ballpark really well. Chase Field is huge in the outfield. So what did the front office do? Well, they drafted and acquired rangy, speedy outfielders that have good bat-to-ball skills. So when a team like the Dodgers, who, excel with the long ball or getting, trying to maximize launch angle and exit velocity, and those balls in a larger outfield start to drop, they have fast outfielders that can track those down. And offensively, because they're so fast and they have good bat-to-ball skills, when they get on the base paths, they are an absolute terror. And throughout this entire series, in every game, a walk turned into a double. A single turned into a double. Everybody who was on first could score. It's similar to, playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and the red zone's not the 20-yard line going in. It's the 50-yard line going in. It's how it felt with the Diamondbacks. That guy on first felt like he could score at any moment. And generally, they did. They excelled with runners in scoring positions. I think at one point they were 18 of 30 something. They were about 50% with runners in scoring position. I mean, they hit the ball very well. They played to their strengths. They were very creative, and we'll kind of get into that later, or more so how the Dodgers kind of aren't and how that might be a problem. So the flip side of that is, like I said, the Dodgers exit velo, launch angle. Especially early on in this season, they're very reliant on the long ball. There are at least 3 balls that were hit, 2 by Freddie, 1 by JD, that were home runs at Dodger Stadium. And the broadcast today could not stop talking about it. But it's true. A lot of the balls that were hit, were in the air, landed in other ballparks where they wouldn't have. So that also plays a factor. Needless to say, I'm happy we're not going back to Chase Field anytime soon. So I do want to highlight some bright spots from this series before we, spiral down a deep, dark rabbit hole from which no light can escape. Freddie Freeman, we don't deserve him. He is unbelievable. He went 8 for 17 with a home run and 3 doubles. He's just, every at-bat is a true treat with him. It seems when you watch teams from the team from last year where Trey Turner was just striking out on low and away sliders, Mookie Betts can have that tendency where he just stares at a fastball. Every pitch, every at bat, every pitch with Freddie is competitive. So it's just a treat to watch. James Outman continues to rake. In 17 plate appearances, he had 4 hits, 2 homers, and he drew 3 walks. And one of those homers was off his childhood hero, Madison Bumgarner. I will never say the word hero and Bumgarner in the same sentence ever again, so relish that while you can. JD Martinez also had himself a fine series. It was a quiet series, it felt like, because the storylines and headlines were focused elsewhere. But an 18 plate appearance, he did get 6 hits, 3 doubles, a triple. That will most likely be the last triple of his career, so I was glad it was as a Dodger. And he drew a walk. On the pitching side, Dustin May absolutely shoved. 6-inning pitch, 1 earned run, 5 Ks. Phil Bickford, outside of a really rocky first 2 batters, he pitched 3 innings over 2 games, didn't allow a run. He actually, like I said, or like I mentioned in that rocky start, he ended up with 2 strikeouts to end that inning. And, he looked decent as he went on. So that was good to see, was improvement. Or in Dustin May's case, a continuation of his prior dominance. And that's kind of where it ends. Now, this is kind of where I made some edits to my previous script or my notes. Because the starting pitching was not good. But I'm just going to sit here and make an excuse for each of the 3 pitchers because it is the second start for each of them. And there's a lot of season left. We'll start with Clayton Kershaw. I really don't care what he did against the Diamondbacks. It was a rough start. He'll figure it out. Unless he strings together just start after start. I mean, months worth of bad starts, then we can start talking. But he's earned the right to, have a bad start now and again. Noah Syndergaard, he got shelled. He looked nothing like he did the first time around. When I dug into the pitch mix and the stats, this is the second time he saw the Diamondbacks. The first time around, he got 6 swings and misses off his changeup. This time around, he got 1. That kind of tells me the Diamondbacks saw his changeup, knew that he was going to use it as a strikeout pitch, a swing and miss pitch, and just sat on it. That's kind of what it felt like they did. And so, yeah, they knocked him around. Michael Grove did not look sharp. Again, his slider, they just, beat into the ground. Nothing broke like it should. I don't know if he's going to get another start, just because I don't know if Pepio's going to be ready to go, or he's got no oblique strain, so maybe not. Or if the world's longest twisted ankle heals itself for Tony Gonsolin. Either way for Michael Grove, I just hope this is something he can do. One of 2 things. You can take the tape, throw it away, and just go, that was a bad start. Or you can look at it and go, okay, this is where I need to improve. This is where his mechanics were a little off. So he could go one of 2 ways. And that's just where I'm going to end with the pitching. There's a lot of, and I don't want to overreact this early in the year. We're going to talk about some lineup and bullpen choices that I found kind of interesting, given the nature or the state of the game and when they happened, just because this can be indicative of what the Dodgers want to do moving forward. So let's talk about it. We're going to start with game 2, which honestly, of the 4 games, was just so bizarre. The Dodgers overall, if you look at the stats, they hit the ball well, they pitched well. It's just when they really needed to, they couldn't get runs across. So I don't really know what happened. It was frustrating because it felt like every inning they had a chance. I mean, they have 5 hits off Bumgarner and drew 6 walks, or I might have flipped those 2. Either way, I mean, you tell me that, I expect the Dodgers to have a field day, but it just didn't happen. But we're going to go late into the game. Top of the 8th, down 1 run and a man on base. They decided to keep Austin Barnes in the game instead of pinch hitting for Will Smith. I understand the Dodgers want to save Will Smith's legs. I get it. But they're down 1 run in the top of the 8th with a man on. And they have the 3rd best bat, arguably, or 2nd best, because, however you want to look at Freddie, Will, and James Outman right now. Regardless, they have Will Smith sitting on the bench. He is the best option. Austin Barnes, to that point, had not recorded a hit. And spoiler alert, still hasn't. So I think the Dodgers need to try to keep Will Smith's bat relevant. If you don't count today's game, and I'm not going to because he was not supposed to start, Austin Barnes got ejected for the first time in his career arguing balls and strikes from behind the dish, which I think was also indicative of just kind of how frustrating this series was. I mean, Austin Barnes got thrown out. He's usually pretty even keeled. But regardless, if you don't count today's game, Will Smith is playing less games than both Adley Rutschman and JT Realmuto, and he's considered their contemporaries. If those teams are playing those guys, especially JT Realmuto, who is, I believe, like 4 years older than Will Smith, there's no reason Will Smith can't pinch hit one inning or one at bat and then catch an inning. And there's no reason. And we're going to, I don't want to harp on this too, because we're going to have another situation in game 4 that I want to talk about. But we're going to circle back to this Will Smith conversation, because I think it's a window into a slightly larger problem the Dodgers are having. So moving on to game 3, the Dodgers elected to have Jason Hayward man center field instead of James Outman, who had been manning center field every time he was in the game. I don't know if, the Dodgers and Jason Hayward have an agreement where he doesn't start in left field, but if they don't, I don't see why he isn't in the corner outfield. There's been quite a few balls this year that he just can't run down. They've gotten past his outstretched arm. And that happened again here. There was a ball hit in the gap, right center field. Ultimately, Hayward couldn't get to the ball. He did have a great throw to Muncy afterwards, where if Muncy had caught the ball, probably would have gotten the guy out at third. However, I think if Outman's in center field, I don't think that's an issue. I think he just catches the ball. He's a little bit faster. He might just have a better first step right now. Whatever the reason may be, Outman seems to cover more ground. There hasn't really been a situation where, he's dove for a ball he hasn't needed to, and the ball's gone by him. He had a couple weird instances where the ball hit right off that monstrous wall in center at a weird angle, but that wall, the dimensions of that stadium of Chase Field are just so bizarre. I don't really fault him for that, but this was just a running, ranging play for Jason Hayward that it's the second time that I can think of off the top of my head that he missed, and the time that I think James Outman, if they're both in the lineup, I don't see why James Outman isn't playing center field. I think he's earned that right thus far, because he's, played that position very well. So that play where he didn't throw the guy out at third ended up scoring from third on a sac fly the next at bat. So that did matter. So that's for game 3. Game 4, the Dodgers had David Peralta hitting third. That was an interesting choice for the 3-hole. Granted, I immediately, and I said this in my pregame, so if you haven't checked that out, I'll be posting those every day before every game. Make sure to check those out. Just kind of little insights, maybe some lineup stuff before the game. And in this instance, I ate crow almost immediately as he drove a run in the first. However, before that, he was 0 for 11. And then after that, he was 1 for 16. 1 for 5 today. It was just an interesting choice to put him batting third when, again, Outman's available if you want to stick lefty. I didn't hate moving Max Muncy down in the lineup today. He just hasn't produced at the plate. We'll get into that in a little bit. So I didn't hate putting him in the 5-hole. If we're going to try stuff, again, go for it. Put James Outman at third. Just see if he can do it. Just on this off chance. Just let him have at-bats in that spot. Who knows? So that was just an interesting choice in my opinion. If they wanted to keep that lefty at-bat. If they didn't, they wanted to do, because they effectively had, it was Mookie Freddie, David Peralta, JD Martinez. Hell, you could bump JD up to third and then throw Outman in fourth. Let him bat cleanup. I just think moving Peralta that high in the lineup was, I don't think it was putting him nor the team in position for success. And we're going to kind of get to that with this next point. Will Smith wasn't in the lineup again today. Doc made it a point that early in the year that he doesn't want Will Smith batting 3 games in a row or catching 3 games in a row. Well, he wasn't. He caught yesterday as of this recording, and so today would have been his second game. Now they said they wanted Austin Barnes to catch twice, and then Will Smith will catch the upcoming Giant series. Okay. I'm not someone who thinks that they should be married to these plans going into a 4-game series, because stuff happens. The Dodgers are on a 3-game skid, or they were going into a 3-game skid. Again, you don't have one of your best bats in the lineup, and Kershaw wasn't on the mound, so they can't use the excuse of, well, Kershaw's pitching and he likes when Barnsley's behind the dish. Well, that wasn't the case either. Will Smith wasn't coming off a back-to-back, so he has pretty fresh legs. I don't get why the Dodgers are so married to the idea of 2 games for Austin Barnes, 2 games for Will Smith. And to say, like, yeah, this is early in the year, these games do matter. This game matters just as much as a game in August. But more importantly, with the decreased number of games against each team, these games matter a little bit more. So right now, the season series standings, Dodgers against Diamondbacks, the Diamondbacks are leading 5-3. The Dodgers have to go 4-1 in the next 5 meetings to win the season series against the Diamondbacks. And I do expect the Diamondbacks to be good. And that's not just because they just, ran through the Dodgers, like a wet paper bag. It's because I like what they're doing. I think they're young. I think they're scrappy. Like they said the word scrappy a million times. I think, they're going to be hard to beat at home. So, there's a real possibility the Diamondbacks are in a wild card position. And if the Dodgers are also in a wild card position, well, it would be really nice to have, this tie break against the Diamondbacks if it comes down to that. So, if they're really worried about Will Smith catching so much, well, this game 8 matters a little more right now than game 1 against the Giants tomorrow. So then let Will Smith catch tonight. If you want to bat him 3 games in a row, cool. He goes yesterday, today, game 4, tomorrow. And then you can have Barnesy catch 2 games in a row. And one of those games is Kershaw. So that makes sense. That just falls in line. And then, he catches, Dustin May's next starter or like whatever. So they can build that in. But I think, excluding Will Smith from today's lineup is a gross oversight just because, 4-4 matters a lot going into the last 5 games against the Diamondbacks than being at a 5-3 deficit. There's not a lot of room for error. So it's a little bit of early pressure just within the division. And I know it's early, but these games do, like, we're going to look back on this series potentially in October or in late September and go, well, we really wish we had taken at least one of those other games against the Diamondbacks. That could make a difference. So, those were kind of smaller choices that I think the Dodgers made that I would have liked to see differently, or I'm concerned about moving forward if we see, Will Smith not being in the lineup, Peralta hitting so high, James Outman and Jason Hayward, and James Outman's not in the higher priority defensively, at least for the position. So I'm worried about that. I want to talk about some larger problems so far in the early goings, but I don't want to harp on them too much, just because it is early and everyone's favorite phrase, it's a small sample size, is going to come into play here. But there is general concern for Max Muncy. He went 2 for 13 with 5 walks this series. Compared to the first two series, he is walking more, so that's good. But I really want to focus on game 3 because I think it's been a microcosm of this season so far. And this is what has me concerned more than just his overall statistics. So I believe it was a second at bat. It was an 0-2 count, and he watches a fastball clip the outside edge of the plate, and he just gets rung up looking. As Joe Davis would say, like, watching a house on the side of the road. He just watched. Even if nobody doubts Max Muncy's eye. He's got one of the best eyes in the game. That's why he walks so much. On an 0-2 count, even if he thinks it's close with his production or lack thereof this early in the season, he's got to just stick his bat out and at least try to foul this one off. It does clip the edge. It is a strike. It is close. Certain umps might have given it to him. I don't know, but it was close enough that on an 0-2, if this was a 3-2 count and he watched it, sure. Yeah. Maybe the ump will squeeze the pitcher. He draws a walk. This was an 0-2 count. He's got to stick his bat out there and at least try for something. And that's what concerns me because I don't think Max Muncy, when he's right, does that. I believe it's his next at-bat. He swings over a breaking pitch so far below the zone that Mr. Ray, the teacher from Finding Nemo, does not have a name for that zone. It was so deep. It was ugly. And he's been kind of swinging at those just, these curveballs that are basically ankle high all year. That's concerning. He's usually not somebody that slumps. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because last year was mostly injury and he lit the world on fire at the end of the year. But in those two at bats in game 3 were concerning to me. Maybe he's pressing a little too hard, or he's not seeing things to the right, or he's not seeing things right. He's not seeing the strike zone as well as he normally does. Things that make him valuable inside the box. So I hope that can get corrected. I think it will. I believe in Max Muncy, but it's just something that through the first 10 games, it has been a constant, and it does worry me a little bit. And the other part is, and this worries me slightly less, is his troubles on defense. They're not all his fault. Like I said, that Hayward throw, if Outman's out there, he catches the ball. I would like to see Muncy pick that ball because that is kind of a first baseman move, so he should be pretty used to that. The only play that, I thought, he's not Nolan Arenado. He's not Manny Machado. He's not going to make these incredible diving, reading the bat off the ball or the ball off the bat so well that he just, sticks his arm out, jumps, and grabs it. He's, unfortunately not that athletic, but he's, athletic. But he let a bloop ball go over his head, and he was jogging or he was running down the line, and then he looked up, and then he just kind of thought, oh, this is gonna go foul, and then he looked down, and the ball hit the line, and then scooted towards the left field wall, kind of where the ball boy or girl sits. That to me is he's still not comfortable at third base. He's still learning the dimensions of the position, so I think that will get better. What I believe in Max Muncy is we've seen him turn himself into an above average glove. I mean, he was not the best at first base, and he becomes a Gold Glove first baseman. He was perfectly suitable and fine at second baseman last year, outside of one misplay against the Phillies. Also, I think that play was in April or May. It was early in the year. I trust that he'll figure it out. It's just when you put all this together is when it hurts. You can have the defensive woes when you're tearing the cover off the ball, or you can be Miguel Rojas and not hit the ball very well, but just be otherworldly defensively. It's just tough when it's both happening together. And I hate to make the comparison, but like at least Cody was making plays at center field. So you need to have one or the other. And I think it's bleeding over a little bit. He's thinking a lot. His defensive woes might be affecting him at the plate or vice versa. So but these are all issues I do think he will eventually fix. It's just tough to watch as of right now. The last thing, and I think I got too deep into the weeds with the bullpen, because I'm a big stats guy. I like looking at the underlying stats. But I think this series put a microscope on it because of how the Diamondbacks are looking to play baseball, which is, put the ball in play, get on the base, run the bases. Because they slice and diced this Dodger staff. I mean, we got BABIP'd to hell and back. I think the only two pitchers that didn't give up a run were Shelby Miller, Evan Phillips, and Phil Bickford. The best one, in my opinion, was Phil Bickford. Just to kind of come back from where he was a week ago to, when he did this, like in the 3 innings he had this series, was awesome. Almonte Ferguson and Vesia did not look particularly good. They all gave up runs. I think Brewstar had one good outing, one bad outing, or subpar outing. Is there a concern? Yes. I think they'll figure it out. Now, there are fans who will say, oh, well, there's help coming. Okay, we don't know what Daniel Hudson's going to look like. Alex Reyes is way down the line, and I'm not putting any stock into Trinan coming back this year. And even if he does, who the hell knows what he's going to look like. What I do trust is Andrew Friedman finding an arm somewhere. Every year, the Dodgers have had the best bullpen ERA for 5 years. Or not the best, like top 2. I think they were third another year. But and that, a lot of that has to do with Andrew Friedman finding somebody. Last year, he traded for Chris Martin. Everybody's like, who? Except, the Chris Martin with no Grammys. They were like, who? And he ended up being like a very reliable pitcher late into the year. Same with Tommy Kahnle. Friedman has a way of finding these guys. Maybe somewhere within the organization. You could see a Gavin Stone. I know they're slow playing Bobby Miller, but if the bullpen struggles continue, maybe we see, it's Miller time earlier in the year as a bullpen piece. If Tony Gonsolin, yes, that is his name. If Tony Gonsolin comes back and he looks the part, Pepio could come out of the bullpen as like a long reliever. So I think there are answers to be had. It's just going to take a little bit to find them. It's just going to suck until we find those answers, because it is tough watching the bullpen and just knowing that no lead is safe right now. That being said, this series is a little different. Like, yes, the bullpen got touched up, but the starters didn't exactly do themselves any favors either. So I don't throw this all in the bullpen. It is a little bit of concern, though. A couple of stats that I did kind of want to touch on is BABIP. One of them is BABIP. According to Fangraphs, as of today, they're 25th in BABIP with a 337 BABIP. So there could be some regression in the mean coming. Other parts of that is, the Dodgers aren't really fielding the caliber of defense we're used to seeing. I know someone in the comments is going, well, Corey Seager. Oh, well, Trey Turner. Okay, yes. Well, we haven't had Miguel Rojas sans today. Max Muncy isn't playing Gold Glove caliber third base. We have, Miguel Vargas is still figuring out second. We've had a rotation of guys at short, mostly Chris Taylor. So we haven't had any consistency there. And the outfield, the left, Mookie Betts has played second or right, and he's looked fine at both. And then center field and left field have been a rotation of guys. There aren't like stalwart guys that are just like, oh yeah, this guy's a third baseman. It's not like walking out, Max Muncy, Corey Seager, Justin Turner every day and be like, oh yeah, these are our first short and third baseman. there's a little bit more rotation. So, they ban the shifts. We have a few more moving pieces. It's going to take some adjustments, take some time to really gel. I mean, this is where losing Gavin Lux hurts, because he was supposed to be the guy at short. So it was really supposed to be, like Freddie, Miguel Vargas, Gavin Lux, Max Muncy every day. Gavin goes down, Miguel Rojas goes down. We've all heard it before. So I don't arbor it too much, but they're 25th right now in BABIP. So maybe we get some regression to the mean, and it doesn't look so ugly in a little bit. The one that really does bother me is they're 25th in strikeouts per 9, according to Fangraphs. That's just not going to fly. I mean, that's going to hurt their BABIP. Just the more balls you put in play on average, they're probably more going to sneak through with the ban shift and, the aforementioned rotation of guys defensively. So got to get some swing and miss eventually. The one bright spot is walks per 9. The Dodgers have the best bullpen in baseball. Walks per 9. We're 1.29 walks per 9. I think the next closest is 1.9, something like that. But that's just cherry picking a stat. It doesn't mean a whole lot because if you're not striking out guys, it's nice that you're not walking them. But if they're putting the ball in play, you're not going to walk them because they're putting the ball in play otherwise. So I just wanted to look at a few of those stats and just as just kind of a barometer, voice crack, for where this bullpen's at and moving forward. Ultimately, when I look at this series, I think when the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks meet up again in August, this series is going to look way different. It's not going to play out this way. I think the Dodgers will have tightened up defensively. I don't think the bullpen is going to look anything like it will in August as it does now. I think we're going to add a few arms. I hope we add a few arms or change some things around, solidify a few more pieces in the rotation. You get guys who are more comfortable. You get a more comfortable Miguel Vargas, a more comfortable Max Muncy, and this game plays a little differently. Or the series plays a little differently. So I think in August versus now, I think the series plays out way differently. Overall, this series, it's kind of a look at what you need to look at and then just flush it. It's rough. You lose a football game 42-0. The coach shows up Tuesday morning or Monday morning, whenever film is, and goes, we got beat. On to the next one. And the next one's the Giants. What a better way to try and bounce back from a 3-game losing streak than to just beat up on the Giants up north in another ballpark with some interesting dimensions and weather effects. But, that comes with the territory, I suppose. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I'll have another one of these after the Giants series. It'll be a little bit different, just like I said, with a 4-game series, these teams just having seen each other and just how the series went. I thought this approach would be a little bit better. And tune back in tomorrow for the preview, the pregame. I know Julio's on the bump for the Dodgers, and I didn't check. Oh, Logan Webb should be going for the Giants. So that'll just be a fun pitcher's duel. Maybe, we'll see a little bit more Dodger baseball like we're used to. So I'm still just like the other ones. I have no idea how to end this. So see ya.